My first encounter with beings from tryptamine space occurred at approximately 6 in the evening on September the 16th, 2009. Before this, only ever had I heard of DMT before from the infamous Joe Rogan talk show. The administrator of the aforementioned asked me if I wanted to take a dose, and I timidly accepted. Immediately, a sister hopped up at the news and began preparing the space. After the preparations were done, an alcove was shrouded in various fabrics that were not overwhelming but still had some spunk, a cello occupying an unused corner, and a big, squishy, comfortable bed occupying the floor, accompanied by a very comfortable selection of pillows. Ambient tones were emplaced, calmly broadcasting ocean goodness at an acceptable level from the other room. I entered my little cave with my sitter. He loaded the DMT onto a steel screen into the bowl of the apparatus. I took 4 monstrous hits and held them in, trying to count to 5 each time. I certainly thought I had gotten there, wherever there is, but apparently I hadn't even breached the threshold. But after the whole dose kicked in, it hit me hard. Things then became markedly different. Colours crept out of the curtained entrance to the cave and shifted freely. This was in a way that was not without symmetry and form of some kind or another. An utterly unified and interconnected feeling swept over my entirety, distracted by a glance upward, revealing a ceiling rather fluid and alive. The cello became significant, so captivating, as I gazed upon it, wholly focused. The cello proceeded to take on impossible geometries. Next began a static noise quietly, then louder. The static became, in such an unexplainably structured way, a luscious, gorgeous, ringing tone beyond all limitations of normally perceived frequencies. The ambience had melted away, me, existence, and time were becoming more and more. Now, here, nowhere and everywhere. I was still talking, and lively too. So my sitter said, "Quick, you don't have long, hit it again." He quickly reloaded it, and with a final, "Should I?" I commenced to take a final, noxiously thick cloud into my being, in and in and in. The exhale process had to have happened, and my breathing had not halted for what follows, or I wouldn't be here to type this. My identity was ceasing abruptly. No surprise, I wanted this. I heard a totally alien pop, then came a spiral that started as 7, then 7 squared, cubed, exponentially cut into infinity, and then suddenly splashed through my being. A tone took over, gentle, mesmerizing, and ever-increasing. The floors started to exhibit extremely bright, vividly colourful hallucinations. The features of the alcove were still almost recognizable. A houndstooth blanket on the north wall of the space was diving into and out of infinitely more complex iterations and spiraling back. The cello was now a symphony of sing-song, spinning, throbbing, pulsing light and sound, woven into one. The body of it was a shadow, the strings a neon green, to electric orange, to a shade of purple. That can't exist on this spectrum of light, shifting through the colours with every pulse and rotation. I remember him, the entity, all garbled and out of focus, fuzzified, and his question, the alien sound of the vibrations he was uttering, was almost chilling. But I vehemently agreed with his inquiry, albeit a whispering. His question was, "Do you mind if I go too?" A yay escapes me, quietly, but still assuring. As my synapses were becoming flooded more so with the chemical, my ability to keep my perceptions of reality, its boundaries and limitations, was being rapidly disintegrated. He came into focus. I was rather determined to greet and thank my brother in that particular puddle of astonishment, and by my will I did it. He proceeded to blow my mind even further by replying, "Thank yourself, man." We began to fall into one being, literally. He asked, "Are you okay with this?" I retorted the same, both affirming. We melded into one, then fell through each other into the environment. We are becoming every new dimension unfolding, living every possible moment and experience in what seems like less than a second. Moving on to the next holding zone leading up to the breakthrough, splashing through so many planes, too much to ever bring back, each time so convinced that I was as far as I could go. I went deeper though, down, in and in. After that whole ordeal, I looked behind me. There a barren, lone mountain stood, comets rained from the infinitely soaring cosmos, and clouds of impossible proportions rose to meet them. A small dark cave that felt lost and afraid was packed to the teeth with atrocities beyond comprehension. I remember tearing myself willingly away from the grasping arms of the dark, twisted, ugly forms, turning towards a shimmering golden light, where a being stood that was almost humanoid. It is made up of pure light and unconditional love. I apologized for gazing upon its perfection. It simply smiled. The eyes told me it was a smile, and it presented the implication of a hush upon my mind's ear and touched my lips, shattering the rest of my anatomy entirely. It enveloped the realm I was to be thrust upon, integrating so fluidly with the environment around it and becoming it, as I was in the transition to this particular place. This was the beginning of the breakthrough. Time is already distorted, just stretched, out, in, folded up, twisted around and then back again. Millions, then billions of these wondrously gentle, loving arms took me into them and the surroundings. And finally, I fell through to a place where all the dimensions that I had fallen through to get to it were laid out, open and perceivable, all at once. And there were these gorgeous, shimmering, pulsing, beyond intelligent beings made of light. Mulling over them, as if they were objects. They were objects, although I'm not sure. Were they objects or dimensions? Can't they be both? Were they beings too? At any rate, one of the things noticed me and uttered a shrill note, but of greeting and affection, not malice or fear. Instantly they all swarmed over to me and flooded through me, and these gorgeous, awesomely astounding things were spewing forth from them. And it made sense. They were trying to talk to me, to implore me to pay attention. Then another pop happened. That again? But backwards this time. Then, as suddenly as it had curled, buckled, twisted, and stretched to the spiral I was on, time came crashing back to me. Every single experience I had just gone through to get to this higher place was replayed backwards in fast and slow motion all at once. I feel as if I were liquid being pulled down a drain, and I was poured back into my body, weeping upon re-solidifying. 4 minutes had passed. 4? That can't be right. No way that was only 4 minutes. I emerged from my cave. Everything was swaying and spiraling. I was able to twist my physical reality visually in the fashion that time was being tossed around so effortlessly before. I went into the next room and leaned on a wooden desk, splashing my hand through, then rapidly removing myself from the surface of it. I didn't miss it. I squarely planted, and within seconds after noticing a sinking feeling in my palm, then the following happened. 20 minutes of vivid visuals and concepts dance around in my inner verse, leaving me with much to mull over and a realization that I had just seen enlightenment, but not truly been it. And when I do end up facing my inevitable mortality, that there is something greater beyond myself, others, and the surroundings we all share. And as long as we exit this plane all proper-like, we all go there, back to the source. Be it heaven or hell or whatever you want, you make it. You are making it right now, but if you could see, you would be a puddle on the floor, gawking like a blind man suddenly given the gift of sight.